Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's edition of Literary Nights with Unsolicited Press. I'm excited about the readers we have this evening. Tierney, I'm sorry, and Taylor Garcia. I know Terry from his poetry at AWP last year, and Taylor and I were supposed to do some readings together when our books came out, I think, but COVID squashed that. So I'm very pleased to
Yeah.
introduce Terry and Taylor tonight. And I want to let everybody know, however, before we begin, to smash the like button and to follow us from wherever you're watching. Also, if you have any comments or if you have any questions during the Q&A period, put them in the comments section from wherever you're watching, and we'll be able to see them and answer them in real time. So thank you so much for joining. And we usually go in alphabetical order, but both of you begin with T tonight. So I think we'll start with Taylor since T comes before the second T. So Taylor, would you like to begin reading? Tell us a little bit about your book and about your work, and we'll go from there.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rosalia. I appreciate the warm introduction and the opportunity to be here tonight as a group. And I want to thank Unsolicited Press for the opportunity to do this. The three of us are esteemed authors with Unsolicited Press, and I can't say enough good things about Summer and the whole team over there. And so just a little background. My name is Taylor Garcia. I live here in San Diego, California. I'm originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm excited to share that I have my third book arriving November 5th, which, if anybody's keeping track, is Election Day. And so I have a story collection arriving through Unsolicited Press. It's called Animal Husbandry. It's a collection of, basically sort of men living in this time that we're in, which in my mind is what I'm calling the peri-apocalypse. It's sort of the apocalypse in real time. And so that's what the collection's about. And so you can go to my website, btaylorgarcia.com, and make a pre-order. But I'm going to read just an excerpt from that collection tonight, and I'll give you just a little bit of a background. So one of the stories is about a prominent famous person. His name is Carl Bonifacio, and he is world renowned for being a flat earther. And he has come to a realization that the world is actually not flat, and he is going to essentially let his followers know that he's changed his mind on this stance. And so we're going to come in at the very end of the story where he's actually sitting with his psychologist. He's been in therapy for a while. And this exchange is essentially between him and his therapist. And then he's also going to write a couple of letters to his followers, because as part of his fame, he was going to take people to the edge of the earth. He was actually going to have a boat cruise that he was going to take his followers to. So the story is called Journey to the Edge of the Earth. And so I'll start from the time when Carl, the main character, is talking to his psychologist, Tony. Sitting on the sofa across from Tony, Carl spread his arms out, draping them over the back of the couch. "You seem much more relaxed," Tony said. "Your whole demeanor reflects calm." "Thank you. I feel it. I told my girlfriend that what I wanted, and she accepted it," Carl said. "So what was her reaction?" "She was sad. She cried." "It's kind of like how you cried in our last session. Perhaps you two are mourning the change that's coming," Tony said. "That sounds about right," Carl said. "So what's next?" "Well, I'm telling my followers I'm canceling and I'm canceling this trip. Oh, and I'm going to go on the Joe Rogan Experience and debunk it all." "Wow, the Joe Rogan Experience?" Tony said. "Do you listen to it?" "No, but I hear it has quite a following." "Yeah, it's going to be big," Carl said. "What's going to be big?" Tony said. "The show?" "No, the announcement. Once I say what I'm going to say on his show, it's going to get some attention." "And what are you going to say?" Carl pulled his arms off the back of the couch and leaned forward, palms up outstretched to Tony. "That the world is round, of course." "And you're expecting to feel attention?" Carl sat back. Well, yeah. May I ask you something? Tony said. Yeah, what? My job isn't to judge you. My job is to provide a space for you to talk and share your feelings, a place for you to process your emotions. And so I don't want this question to come across as judgmental, maybe just more curiosity. Carl pulled his arms in, holding his elbows in a half hug. Tony went on. I'm not one who believes that the earth is flat. I like to consider myself a man of science, and the scientific tradition I ascribe to tells me that the earth is indeed round. But I also believe people should and are able to believe what they want to believe, right? So when I first met you and you shared that you believed the earth was flat, I didn't judge. But I did question that belief. I wondered how you arrived at that and why you upheld that. It all came clear to me later once you shared what you did and all that, but I still just kind of wondered about what drove you to be so adamant about that notion. I kind of had forgotten about it until just now when you said you were expecting to feel attention. This is the longest way to ask a question, Tony, Carl said. I'm dying here. First of all, never say you're dying, okay? The brain only hears what it hears and the body responds. And yes, here's the question. Forgive the preamble. When you begin building your platform, gaining followers, becoming flat manly, you were doing it because you wanted to make a real change in the world. In other words, did you want to change hearts and minds, or were you simply wanting to feel something, like attention? Carl had no words. He now steeped his hands together, prayer-like, his fingertips at his lips. His eyes searched, first the neutral carpet of Tony's office, then the coffee table and tissue box, the bookshelves filled with psychology manuals, then the modern art, and then his own thoughts. It was attention. Wow, Tony, wow. Again, I'm not trying to judge you here, and I don't think it's incredibly relevant to your mental state right now. No, it's not judgmental, but I do think it's relevant. I mean, I just wanted to feel something, and I went about seeking attention. Well, just spend some more time thinking about that. Maybe you can identify the moment when it went from a true interest to filling some unmet need. But right now, I invite you to hold on to that distinction you've made so far. No. You don't have to do all the psychology talk. I get it. It's just making me see it now in full. I felt what I needed to feel, and now I feel something different. Thank you for helping me see that. Carl sat back, exhaled. And I know what you're going to say, he said. What's that? Tony said. What's next? With that, Tony crossed his legs and clasped his own hands together. So now this is the section where Carl is writing a couple letters back to the people who wanted to join his trip, and he's going to let them know his change of heart. Hello, flat planet Pat. I'm writing to let you know that the journey to the edge of the earth has been canceled. Soon, I will be providing more details about the change in plans, as well as a change in my stance on this theory that unites us. For the moment, know that there is nothing you need to do since you have not paid. I simply ask for your patience and understanding as I sort out what comes next. I sincerely thank you for your interest and support of me and my platform. You mentioned a wheelchair. I'm curious to know more about your condition, and I'm wondering how I might support your health journey. Sincerely, Carl Flat Manly Bonifacio. Dear Mr. McEvers, first, I would like to thank you for making direct contact with me to state your interest in the journey to the edge of the earth. It's fans like you that inspire me to do what I do. Second, I must inform you that the voyage has been canceled due to a significant change in how I view planet Earth. I hope that what I am about to share does not erode your beliefs, nor take away the awe and mystery of science and the wonder of what we cannot see nor explain. I hope that you are able to stay curious about Earth and space and science, and that you find your own way to explain your theories and belief systems, and that you hold true to them for however long they work for you. For me, I have arrived at a new understanding that the earth is not flat and that it is indeed round. I once believed that it was flat and found theories to support it, but there is overwhelming evidence that the earth is round, and over time, I have not been able to ignore it, nor have I been able to continue upholding what I know is simply false. Processing this change, going from someone who is a true believer, someone who is a prominent voice in the flat earth community, to someone who is now denouncing the entire belief system and calling it a hoax, has been a journey in and of itself. I hope that this does not shake you in a harmful way. I'm trying to be honest with the community, which will most certainly include me stepping away from it. As mentioned, please stay curious, embrace the mystery of it all, question everything, and believe when you're ready. Sincerely, Carl Bonifacio. To the Joe Rogan Experience, from Carl Bonifacio. Hello, Steve and team. First, thank you so much for your interest in my message and for considering me to be a guest on the show. When my girlfriend shared the news about your offer, I was thrilled, but I admit I was also incredibly afraid. I'll explain. At the time of your offer, I was in the middle of a major shift in my identity. I have since rejected that notion that the earth is flat, and I am dismantling my platform, which upholds this belief, if you want to call it that. Because of my fame and notoriety in this field, there is a lot of work to be done to reframe my position. There was a moment when I wanted to join your show to become a vocal opponent of flat earthers, but I checked myself asking, what will this serve other than adding more noise to a ludicrous topic in the first place? And so, with all due respect, I decline your request to be a guest on your show. I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion that will accomplish very little for those involved. Sincerely, Carl Bonifacio, formerly known as Flat Manly. Thank you. There we go. Thank you so much. I think you're muted. Yep. Thank you both. Thanks everybody watching out there.
All right, so Terry, yeah, that's great. That's really great. And I'm sorry, I seem to be having some connectivity issues tonight. So I don't know if I'm going to be kicked out again, but if I do, just carry on and I will come back in. So Terry, I'm looking forward to hearing your poetry, and then we'll follow by a Q&A.
Thank you, Rosalie, and thank you, Taylor. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Thank you.
Gave me new perspective on on flat Earth, and it's so interesting that he can come to a revelation that the Earth is round after all these centuries. That was just hilarious. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd like to. I have a new poetry book coming out on October 1st from Unsolicited Press, and it'll be my second poetry book. And I also have two novels. So this new poetry book is called Why Trees Stay Outside. And I'd like to start with the title poem, which, as you'll see as I read the poem, was actually inspired by my son back when he was very small. He was he was sitting in the back seat as I drove him to preschool one morning. Why trees stay outside? Why do trees stay outside? My son asks in the rearview mirror. His car seat centered behind me. He worries about the soaking rain, the trees getting wet. I could tell him the old fable, the night the redwoods came to dinner and grew too tall to leave. Or I could tell him the truth, how trees are inside now. Their roots, we live in their house, their roots clasped in rings around us, like praying hands. They watch, wondering why we neglect the desperation of doe and fawn sprinting for shelter, the cold stars peering through boughs of live oak, the promise of blooming moss. I might echo his teachers, say we are one with nature. The trees and rocks love us. They want to be left outside, the easy answer he expects. We climb a ridge as the rain clears, sifting soot from the air. Across the bay, the Farallon Islands punch through the fog like knuckles. Thank you. This next poem is called Woodpecker. A number of the poems in this new collection are, have some relation to the environment, but they still have a lot of meditations on relationships and other things that are happening in our world around us. This is called Woodpecker. Loud knocks at daybreak when I should be dreaming. the echo inside my brain, like the creep of another migraine, filling the hollow of rotting wood. I know what the rhythm means. Soft studs and peeling paint, weathered by heat and too little rain, the dry rot of good intentions. But this summer, I will make repairs, unless my hammer hangs too heavy, like last year, that morning he left. Outside my window, the woodpecker stares back with one hollow eye, white crown with a splash of red, gray and black streaks like bark, as if that camouflage would fool me. Splayed talons press against shingles, hold the wall steady, balanced over the steep hill, inaccessible but to flying things, as if the house were built top down, a cable descending by crane from clouds of memory. There are things I want to say. How I finally breathed when he was gone. How coming back as bird or angel will not change anything. How I wish he would have stayed. How my arms ache from driving alone. How my fists clench every time I hear him. My eyes sealed with salt. When the hole is large enough, I know the woodpecker will bury another acorn, a scrap of soul, the way he watches me, even after he flies away.
Love that one,
Map
Terry.
and compass. They blew up the town to build a freeway, flooded another to enclose a reservoir. You see the steeple rise in drought years, like the black speck on your x-ray, wishing you only swallowed something by mistake. Every operation is a choice, every choice an incomplete secret, the artifacts no one remembers, buried beneath years of blood and rubble, the cage of your skeleton, your mind reaching out for a chance of escape. Whoever drew the old map is dead now. Their GPS signals are all we have left. If that's the myth you want to believe, satellite souls in orbit, cold and accurate, directions ever precise. They have no need for taste and touch, how a fetus finds its way to life, how deer smell an arriving storm. Birds know the layers of air, phases of moon and sun, the seasons. We describe geography like a living body, arms of land, breath of air, the tide reaching over sand like a lover awakening, the way I trace the nerves along your spine, my need to cover your body with my own, protect you from the threat of change. This poem is called Lint. And I actually had a pastor at one of the churches we once attended who had a sermon about lint. So, so here we go. Lint. Once you believed in God, but each year he grew smaller, shrinking like that cotton shirt you never wear, the one with crossed oars, faded canoe, Northwood's Bible camp, where you almost drowned. The last time you saw him, he was curled up in the back row of your sock drawer, hardly larger than a cotton ball you saved from a bottle of vitamin C. By now, he must be reduced to lint. You recall the sermon in the camp clearing, how faith is like lint, modest, unobtrusive, but sticky in a tactile, textile way. Bits of lint cling together, form a mass, like the congregation on your dryer filter, until it might fill a fluffy bear, flannel shirt, stuffing for your wayward soul, a person, a saint. The pastor shows her ball of lint with pride, but it could infer one God or many, depends on faith, and faith depends on Lent. Alone in the deep lake, you try to find him, his tuffy beard, grandfather on a cresting wave, though heaven must be farther away, beyond reach, like the distant boat trailing a weave of linty rope. Rescue or revelation, sinking boy never asks. So Taylor, you had a scene of psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So this is actually a love poem, but I have to warn that it also talks about human dissection.
Okay.
So it's called Psychotherapy After Dinner. When she unzips her sweater, her lungs spill to the floor, still humming the soundtrack of our dinner conversation, our sticky choice of dessert, how we tasted the pollen in honey, the way she knitted the carnation on her pocket, a finer yard tacking the blossom like the veins connecting her stomach as it slides out between the flaps of her jeans. Then the long trails of intestines, silvery serpents smelling of souls, the salmon and wild rice, the wine. I worry about her gentle heart, whether it can take the pressure, the jarring fall to hardwood, but it purrs beneath her womb and her fertile lobes of brain. Her long legs and slender arms detach and curl around her organs, and her ribs pull away like butterflies until only her spine stands wavering. An empty hanger bent straight with nothing left to stretch, collapsing beside her shoes. From her warm pile of blood and flesh, I feel her fingertips emerge, crawling up my ankles, past my waist, to my own peeling hand, helping me unbutton my shirt. So I think that might be the first dissection love poem. I'd like to end with a poem that's more of a poem about loss. This poem is called "The James Webb Telescope Detects a Heartbeat." They say the pulses come from a distant galaxy, an infant cluster in the first moment of birth. But I wonder if the heartbeat is yours, there in your nebula of blood and gas, mindlessly chewing the corners of your blanket with toothless gums, your eyes still shut to screaming light. The weave of distance and time, where you will always be our first child, the edge of our farthest vision. We squint in every spectrum just to see you the way you are, though we know it's the way you were, what you might have been, larger than we can imagine, and farther than any lost prayer, your growth beyond our lifespan. What do you see when you look our way? Are we even there, or are we infants like you? Thank you.
Terry, those are awesome. I just have to say,
Wonderfully profound and lyrical.
oh,
Yeah,
tremendous. Yeah,
it's mind blowing.
Oh my God. Each one was like its own little universe. I love the woodpecker one because I have a woodpecker that's starting to try to make a home in the tree out front of my place here. I've never seen a woodpecker in my life, and suddenly he's here. So that was cool. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So let's talk a little bit about the writing process. Terry, what inspired each of your poems? Was it a life event or something you've observed about the human condition or about nature? And then I would like to ask Taylor the same question after Terry is finished.
Yeah, thank you very much. This collection of poems, I always tell people my first three books actually were written over the period of the last 30 or 40 years. And I was working all those years, and so I never really had time to finish anything. And so when I finally quit my day job, I had all these unfinished things that I could work on. But this collection of poems was really written in the last 5 years or so. And so, during that time, we've had the pandemic, we've had the social justice issues, a lot of other, we've had a war, well, several wars, and I think it's hard to write with all that stuff going on and not feel it seeping into your poems. So what I found is that I don't really I kind of get ideas for poems as I'm walking or dreaming or whatever. But as I've composed these poems and edited them, I've just felt so much of the environment that we're living in, informing them. And so, I've been telling people that unlike, my previous books, which were more, reflective of a longer period of time, these poems are really reflections of our current situation, our current days, and even though I might talk about the past a little bit, but still I'm talking about it from the perspective of the present. I don't know if I answered your question, but
And that's a good, yes, you did. And that's also a good segue because that speaks to the flat earth conspiracy, which is pretty strong despite all the evidence against it. So, Taylor, how did you come to think that would be a good fodder for a short story?
That's a great question. And I was nodding my head the whole time as Terry was talking, because I had the same thought, right? I think the last year, I wrote most of the stories in this collection over the last year and into this year. And very similar to Terry, I've always been an observer and, a journalist at heart. And so I was doing the same kind of thing where I was just watching our world. And what I've really observed in our world is that people go into like camps, like we've somehow become, sort of like siloed into these different like idea bubbles. And I've been super fascinated with this idea of like flat earth, right? I mean, just the idea of like what it is. And my mind was like, how can I put myself into the head of somebody who is absolutely adamant that the earth is flat? And what would that mindset be? And also like honor it too. Like, I mean, if you believe the earth is flat, great, like good for you, And so I tried to come at it at that angle of like, people who are so set in their beliefs, and that, as humans, as animals, we can change our minds like that. We can change belief systems and thoughts based on whatever's going on. And so that's how this kind of story, came to be, was this idea of like examining somebody who's like super believes this thing, and then says, wait, hold on a second, this may not be true. And then also like having that sort of psychological shift, And so but I agree with Terry. I think this idea of like observing the world as it is, and like just being able to comment on it and have a little fun with it. I always like to try to have fun with my writing, and I hope that's what I did with that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to just
certainly fun to listen to.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I want to just ask you a little
Go
bit
ahead.
too. I think what was really interesting is that, of course, with all the conspiracy theories going on,
yeah,
it's kind of a perfect topic. And were you kind of thinking about, the kind of the genre of current conspiracy theories as you're writing this?
Maybe. I mean, I've always felt like I'm really big on like, the inner circle, like what's really going on behind the curtain. And so I think it's kind of funny to kind of like peek behind like the esoteric, sort of things that are out there. And I think conspiracy theories are one of those things, right? Where group of people, believes this idea, and then they just go for it 100%. And so I just thought that's, kind of what I was trying to look into is, but again, like, how do you humanize that? Because, we're all, I think everybody has they're set in their beliefs, whether it's a religion or a political party or flat earth or whatever it is. And we just get caught in those things. And so I think in our current world right now, it's really just our way to get closer to certainty. And that's kind of what we all want, is sort of a level of certainty. So maybe that's why. Thank you for that question. That's really great. I love it.
I have another question for you, Taylor.
Sure.
The character's name is Bonifacio.
Yes.
That means good face.
Exactly.
Bonifacio.
Yeah. Bonifacio. I think.
Is that purposeful that you? It's a good face or something like that.
Yeah, Bonifacio. Yeah, Facio. Yeah, not necessarily. I think that name just literally just fell into my head one day. So yeah, I don't know if you caught it, but his nickname is Flat Manly. It's like that was his name because he's also like, super pumped up guy, and like that was his sort of like his influence or persona, was that he's like this flat earther guy, and also he's like a big dude, and anyway, Flat Manly. So that's kind of where it came out. So I have a question for Terry.
But Bonifacio works on that.
Bonifacio,
okay.
Yeah,
I was
it's like
say
the face.
Bonifacio works on that other level because he's making a good face off of something that.
You know what's funny? I never.
You had your question for Terry.
Well, I never thought of that. I never thought of that because that name, I don't know where on earth that name fell into my head. And so now that you're saying that, it's like one of those like crazy author things where you just suddenly like you pull something from the ether and you're like, okay, it works. I appreciate that. Yeah, Terry, I was curious about like your poems reflect a lot of this sort of like, looking back at a time, and I, as a father, I look at my children. My children are fairly young, and I'm watching their childhood like sort of, change in real time. And I was just curious, like how you sort of use memory to like be in the present moment, if that makes sense. Like you're thinking of a specific time in the past and how that relates to kind of what's going on right now. I think that's a really cool writer process. And I was just curious a little bit more about how you blend those two things in a very like beautiful, painful way.
Well, thank you. Well, I have this kind of weird sense that, we have a sense of time, of course, and, kind of like a sense that, one thing, things happen one after the other. But I feel like in memory, everything's there at once.
Yeah.
And that, so what that means is that, and I think you can do that in writing also, meaning that so the connection doesn't have to be cause and effect. The connection can be through, image or impact or meaning or character, to link, different segments of history or time. And so, and I feel like, at least in the way I look at some of these things is that for a character also, a lot of times it's less important, what happened when, than the fact that it just happened, the fact that it happened. And so, I try not to get, too precise about, as I was saying, cause and effect, and try more to, as much as I can, have my poems operate the way memory kind of operates, I think. And so that's kind of where that comes from. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but
it makes perfect sense. No, I love that. I rely a lot on, memory, and I like how you said like, not, how did you say it? Like the fact that it has happened, right? I love that. I love that concept. I think that's something that I tap into a lot. So yeah, I appreciate that. Just a good perspective. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the writing process. process. How do you approach the process of writing? Do you keep diaries? Do you write every day? Do you have a disciplined time where you write each day? So each of you talk about, because writing is a discipline. So can each of you talk about how you approach the writing and your discipline for the craft? So I guess we'll start with Terry.
Okay. Well, I do try to write a little bit each day. I'm not always successful, but so, a lot of times for me, it'll start with, I mentioned that, I do sometimes write down things I dream. I also, take a lot of walks, and sometimes, things will just come to me during my walks. Um, my dog has heard some of my most astute observations first. But that said, I think then it's a matter of kind of opening up the cupboard, so to speak, and just connecting things together. And I find if I'm actually working on a fiction project, I will have an outline, and so as I each day I will try to fill in some of that. But I've always had a kind of motto of when I feel a poem coming on, I kind of drop everything and just go with it. And so writing poetry to me is can be kind of disruptive, I guess, but it's also what I really enjoy. And sometimes, and I'm a little bit easy on myself. So if I do editing, if I do a lot of editing during the day, or if I'm writing a review, or something like that, I count that too. So I don't. So I'm not always beating myself up if I don't. Write something new every day.
Very wise, very wise. And Taylor?
I love this question. I relate to a lot of what Terry said. In terms of like the connecting, like I'm one of these people where I connect things that are typically like really, really disparate, like things that don't belong together at all. I've always been a huge fan of irony and like weird things. One of my mentors described my writing as, his words were, "It's creepy but sweet." Like, like things that are just sort of not supposed to be together. And so I've always liked that. And so what I do is I kind of like, I've used this metaphor of like a dustpan, because I love to clean, by the way. And I'm just sort of sweeping up a bunch of stuff. Like, oh, there's a toy, there's some dust, there's, some lint, right, Terry? Just a bunch of things that are in this dustpan. And I keep a little file on my phone that's called the dustpan, where, like we say, Terry, you feel something coming on, and I'll scribble it in there. So I kind of, and then I look at these 5 things. I'm like, okay, and I'm just going to name objects right in front of me. This aloe plant, this orange, this crystal, like these things don't belong together, but then I somehow find a way to weave them together, or I'll hear somebody say something at the gym, or I'll watch somebody's expression, and these things just sort of come together in a very strange way. That's kind of always been my process. It's sort of just a very mishmash. I will say this: I'm one of these fits and starts writers. I'll get the lightning bolt, and boom, it just starts flowing and flowing. And I'm good, and then I'll go through like a drought. I'll go through like a period of time where it's like, wow, I haven't written in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week. But I don't feel bad about it, because I know that it's in there. But I do journal. I keep a handwritten journal, and I usually try to journal when I wake up and before I go to bed, handwritten. And also, Terry, it's funny you say that. I've been writing my dreams down a lot. And it's quite an interesting process when you start writing your dreams down, and you start to see all these symbols and all of these just interesting patterns, and it's just a funny thing. So yeah, so a little bit around the board, but yeah, I wish I used to be a lot more disciplined before I had kids. Like I used to wake up at 5 a.m. and I would write for like a couple hour and get pages and pages and pages. Now I'm lucky if I can get out a couple paragraphs, but it all feels very quality, so I try. So I hope that's it. Love the question.
Yeah, I don't write in a write longhand, and I used to always write longhand, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
but now I have this long file on my computer, and
Mm.
it's I think it's like over 200,000 words now
Oh,
of
I
just
love the
little
long
things
file.
over the
Yeah.
last
Oh my gosh.
10 or 20 years or something like that that I've just little things day by day that I jot down, and
Yeah, I have something similar. Terry, you and I have a lot of things, like a lot of similarities. I called it the daily. I have a daily, I try to write in it, but it's just sort of an ongoing thing, a
mhm.
file. So just, I will say this, make sure you back it up.
Yes.
Because I've had some challenges with saving documents.
Yep.
So a lot of the young or aspiring writers tend to watch these readings every other week. So what do you want those people who have not yet published, but who aspire to publish, who are not yet writing what they feel they want to write? What is some advice that you have for them? Whoever wants to start.
I guess go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, okay, sure. All right, sure. I'll kind of borrow the advice that I received when I was younger and starting out in this world of being a writer. Rewind the clock back to like, I think it was like early 2000s, mid 2000s. I don't know. I went to a workshop, a writers festival, and I worked with Steve Almond, who is one of my favorite writers. He's like a comic writer, also, short fiction, literary fiction. And he said in our workshop, he's like, you're engaging in a craft that is essentially dying. Like, this isn't like a really like a career that every person decides that they will do. It's not lucrative. It's not, it's a dying thing, And so if you're deciding to do this and you want to do it, like you really have to go for it, because this is a tradition that has been around for, thousands of years. And so by doing that, you are going to be carrying on this very sacred tradition that is essentially kind of waning, right? And I believed him. That was, over 20 years ago. And now I can see that, because you're right. I mean, now we're like, we scroll our phones and, we look for things that are, that are so fast and fed to us. We look for instant gratification. So I love the idea of slowing down and writing and keeping a record of what is happening in the world. And so I think if you're a young writer, aspiring writer, your job is to do the job. Your job is to like stay at it and keep the ideas flowing, because, right now we're competing with AI. We're competing with 40 character blurbs and tweets, right? Like our ideas are human, and we have to keep those alive. And so I think it's a matter of like kind of carrying the torch and keeping it going. And so if it's what you want to do, I say do it all the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think you
Terry.
really stated. Yeah, you really stated that very well, Taylor. Because I really feel that everybody has good ideas, and everybody has something they can share and something they can contribute. And my advice to young writers is generally to write. Try to write every day. Try to, or if you don't write every day, at least write as often as you can. And I've seen it happen with a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know. The more you write, the better you get. And everybody, as I say, everybody has good ideas. So a lot of it comes down to how can you best express your ideas. How can you best learn how to edit, what you've done, and how can you, learn how to do rewrites and learn how to get closer to what you
Yeah.
want to express, and I feel that every voice makes a contribution, and in a way, and I also like what you're kind of indicating is that I see a lot of what we're doing is engaging in a conversation that's been going on for centuries.
Yeah. Love that.
We're we're the human race, and we're talking about what it's like to be human, and what we want out of our existence. These are things that are important, and also really rather sacred. And I think it needs to continue, and I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Love that. Well put.
It's a beautiful response. I think a lot of writing, or at least literature, speaks to the human condition. Just like your poem Lint and your excerpt, where a guy is actually coming to a realization that he was wrong, which is kind of like a really big thing for a human being to actually accept that he is wrong and make amends. And also in the poem about the sort of dissection of the human, it's basically two people making themselves vulnerable to each other. After dinner, that's when the facades, the facades, everything that holds us together comes down, and so that we can merge in some way with that other person. So it is. I even though Steve Almond says that it's a dying thing, I disagree, because AI cannot talk to or speak to the human condition, and that's what, as artists, writers are doing and have been doing. I mean, we're still reading the Iliad and the Odyssey many, many years after they were written, and and characters like the Medusa, and we still they still are important to us. So, what do you say about your own? I mean, so what do you think about your own work in terms of, does that come naturally, speaking to the human condition as part of the process? Or, I mean, we can have fun and still speak to the human condition. So could you speak to that a little? And that will be our last question before we're running out of time. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we can have fun. And over the, I'm not sure how Taylor feels about it, but over the years, I've kind of, I think as you write more, you develop your own voice, and so, for better or for worse, I kind of have, I know I kind of have a voice, and so, I don't feel that threatened by AI and stuff, because I feel like, AI might, tap some of the same subjects that I might, but I can't imagine that they would be able to say it like me, or at least that's what I tell myself, that that my perspective is unique, and that's why I was saying the same thing about encouraging other writers, is that I think your perspective is unique. What AI basically is a compendium of everything that's been written, and then it learns from that all of that, and so there's a uniqueness I think to the to human art that I think is never going to be quite totally captured. I think there are certain things, like as you were mentioning, like news stories and stuff like that, where AI might be able to compete in some ways, but original thought, original research, original art is something that I think is always going to be, something that we can retain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, I think, when we think about the human condition, you're right. I mean, we're human, and we each have a journey, a story. We have a history. We have ancestors that are giving us their history. We have, millennia of, backstory that is inside of us, and all of that comes through in what we write. And I'm a big believer in that. When I come to the page, all of that stuff is with me. And so I think that's the fun part for me, is being able to explore that, my human condition is this, right? Like whatever I'm going to write about. And then I think the real beauty with that is that when the reader picks it up, or when the listener hears it and relates to it in a way that says like, oh my gosh, like I get that, or I feel that, or I totally understand what you said by that, or like, or I have a question about that, right? And I think that's the thing that
Or I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly. Like no
Exactly.
computer, no AI, nothing can replace that, right? I think it was actually Stephen King who said in his book on writing that writing is basically telepathy between reader and writer. It's like, I wrote this thing on this page and I'm sending you a message, and you're going to receive that message at some point in time, and you're going to interpret that message. And it's this sort of like interplay between human mind and human mind. And to me, that is amazing. Like the fact that we get to do that is a total gift. And so that's where I have fun. You know, when I'm writing something out, and I laughed while I was reading something because I was having fun with what I was like, wow, that's actually kind of a funny sentence, because it's like, I didn't realize like it was making me laugh, and then someone is going to read it and make them laugh. And that's going to be kind of like the fun we have with that. And even crying too. I mean, I think even if it's something sad, I mean, we all know what it feels like to read a sad passage or watch a sad movie. And, you know, that's what art is. You know, art is basically human condition, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to kind of segue off that really quick. You know, you were talking about, you know, putting different things together, you know, that's and I think one of the things that's really fascinating, and fresh metaphors work that way too, in that when you put you know, things together, you know, say, you know, maybe it's a fresh metaphor, maybe it's a symbol, maybe it's disparate objects. Each individual reader is going to have a slightly different experience of that than even you imagine as the author. And I think that's one of the things that's really so valuable about literature, is that you make meaning of it yourself as you read, you know, you know, really good literature. And so in a way you're imbibing that creativity into the reader. And I think that's, you know, that's so valuable. And I think that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah. Well, I'm inspired by both of you this evening. I want to say thank you to both of you for sharing your work with us. I also want to thank the people who are listening and you know, watching. Thank you for joining us this evening. Don't forget to like us and also follow us. And I also want to invite you to join us again on October 2nd for our next streamed readings for new and forthcoming books from Unsolicited Press. All of Tyler's books and all of Terry's books are available on the website under the books tab. So we hope you order and pre-order and read some of these yourself. And with that, we say good night, and we'll see you again on October 2nd. Thank you all.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rosalia. I appreciate you for hosting.
Thank you.